A stark and sobering message from Israel to its citizens amid growing fear of U.S. attack on Iran. Behind the scenes, Israel is said to be pushing the United States to launch a direct strike on Iran. But at the same time, Israeli security officials are deeply concerned about blowback, fearing a June war-style retaliation. Adding to the alarm, a major warning comes from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Israel will be the first to target. The wounds are still fresh in Israel after Iran hit strategic targets during the 12-day war in June last year. Israel is now reeling under intense fear amid potential U.S. military action against Iran. Fearing to be struck in the crosshairs, a former Israeli Minister of Military Affairs, Avigdor Lieberman, issued a big piece of advice for the people of the Jewish state. According to Press TV, Lieberman, leader of the right-wing Yisrael Beitayinu party, on Wednesday said Israelis must prepare to set up safe shelters in case Iran retaliates against a U.S. strike. But will the U.S. attack Iran anytime soon? The former Israeli leader said the decision lies with President Donald Trump. Earlier, he acknowledged that powerful Iranian missile strikes caused heavy damage to Israeli strategic targets during the 12-day war last June, as per Press TV. Several Israeli officials, including Israeli military chief of staff, General Eyal Zamir, and the head of Mossad spy agency, David Barnea, have made a beeline to Washington in recent weeks. U.S. media outlet Axios had reported that Israel has been pressing Trump to authorize a strike on Iran. According to Press TV, a U.S. official said, "It's really the Israelis who want a strike. The president is just not there." The report comes as the threat of a military confrontation between Iran and the U.S. has de-escalated in recent days. Both sides have confirmed that they would meet in Oman on February 6th to discuss Tehran's nuclear program. Last month, Trump began his pressure campaign to attack Iran as the Shiite nation faced violent anti-Khamenei protesters. Trump had sounded war drums by saying help is on its way.
And by the way, to all Iranian patriots, keep protesting. Take over your institutions if possible, and save the name of the killers and the abusers that are abusing you. You're being very badly abused. If the numbers are right now, I hear 5 different sets of numbers. I hear numbers, look, 1 death is too much, but I hear much lower numbers, and then I hear much higher numbers. But I say save their names because they'll pay a very big price. And I've canceled all meetings with the Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. And all I say to them is help is on its way. You saw that I put tariffs on anybody doing business with Iran. Just went into effect today. And I say make Iran great again. You know, it was a great country until these monsters came in and took it over.
Hossein Daghighi, a commander of Iran's powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, told Lebanon's Al Mayadeen television that Tehran will attack Israel in case of U.S. attack on them. The message, clear and unambiguous: U.S. strike will not go unanswered. The Middle East is on the edge, bracing for what could become the most dangerous confrontation in years.
Iran reveals its target list in case U.S. attacks and a full-blown war ensues. IRGC commander says Iran will attack Israel first in that case. Iran drags Israel as it draws new red line after testing U.S. assets in sea. The warning comes from Hossein Daghighi, a commander of Iran's powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, speaking to Lebanon's Al Mayadeen television. Daghighi said Iran's military posture remains rooted in deterrence and defense, but cautioned that any conflict would spiral rapidly beyond control. He warned that if war breaks out, Iran's response would be impossible for its enemies to predict, both in scale and intensity. "Our strategy is defensive," Dagiki said, "but it can impose a heavy cost on the enemy." He added that any U.S. strike would trigger a response so expansive that the scope of the conflict would widen far beyond its initial battlefield. Now, Israel is closely monitoring a fresh U.S. military buildup in the region while awaiting the outcome of planned U.S. Iran negotiations set to begin. Earlier, the United States military says it shot that drone out of the sky. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says one of its drones completed a lawful mission in international waters, successfully transmitting intelligence data before mysteriously going silent. U.S. command confirmed that a Navy fighter jet shot down an Iranian drone that was approaching the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln while operating in international waters. According to Central Command, the drone was not conducting neutral surveillance but aggressively moved toward the carrier with what the military described as unclear intent. The statement says U.S. forces took de-escalatory steps, but the drone continued flying directly toward the ship, forcing a defensive response. That response came from an F-35C fighter jet launched from the USS Abraham Lincoln itself, which destroyed the drone mid-air. U.S. identified the aircraft as a Shahed 139, adding another layer of uncertainty over which drone model was actually involved. Central Command confirmed the carrier was operating roughly 800 kilometers from Iran's southern coastline at the time of the incident. U.S. officials stressed that no American personnel were injured and no equipment was damaged during the engagement. But the drone shootdown was not an isolated incident. According to U.S. officials, it occurred within hours of another confrontation involving Iranian forces and a U.S.-flagged commercial vessel in the Strait of Hormuz. The USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group is now fully deployed across the Middle East. The strike group includes the carrier itself, capable of carrying up to 90 aircraft and more than 3,000 personnel. It is escorted by multiple destroyers, including the USS Frank E. Peterson Jr., USS Spruce, and USS Michael Murphy. U.S. officials say the deployment is part of Washington's pressure campaign against the Iranian regime, aimed at deterring further escalation.
Tensions in one of the world's most critical waterways are boiling over. In the Strait of Hormuz, a choke point for global oil and gas, Iranian gunboats moved to confront a U.S.-flagged tanker, triggering fresh alarm across the region. According to U.S. officials cited by the Wall Street Journal, as many as 6 armed Iranian boats approached the tanker, ordering it to shut down its engines and prepare to be boarded. The vessel refused, accelerating instead, as a U.S. warship rushed in to escort it through the strait. British maritime authorities confirmed an incident north of Oman, with security firms reporting multiple armed boats linked to Iran's Revolutionary Guards shadowing the tanker and attempting radio contact. Those calls were ignored. Tehran offers a different account, claiming the vessel entered Iranian waters without permission and left after being warned, insisting there was no serious security incident.
Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps forces harassed a U.S.-flagged U.S. crewed merchant vessel lawfully transiting the Strait of Hormuz, U.S. Central Command spokesperson Tim Hawkins said. He added that 2 IRGC boats and an Iranian Mohajer drone approached the tanker MV Stena Imperative at high speed and threatened to board it, prompting the guided missile destroyer USS McFall to escort the vessel with defensive air support until the situation de-escalated.
But the encounter comes as Iran's naval leadership openly warns it could block the Strait of Hormuz if the United States launches an attack. This narrow stretch of water carries nearly a fifth of the world's oil supply, and even brief disruptions can send shockwaves through global markets. The confrontation unfolds amid sharply escalating tensions between Tehran and Washington. The United States has surged naval forces into the region. President Donald Trump has threatened military action over Iran's deadly crackdown on protests, while also pressing Tehran to negotiate over its nuclear program. Iran's president now says he has instructed his foreign minister to pursue talks. But on the water, the message was unmistakable. In the Strait of Hormuz, diplomacy is colliding with deterrence, and a single miscalculation could ripple far beyond the Gulf.
The U.S. Navy has shot down an Iranian drone that was heading straight toward a U.S. aircraft carrier. According to U.S. Central Command, the unmanned aircraft aggressively approached the USS Abraham Lincoln, forcing an immediate response. A U.S. F-35 fighter jet destroyed the drone in what officials describe as an act of self-defense. The Iranian Shahed 139 drone was taken out before it could reach the carrier. The statement by U.S. Central Command said no American personnel were injured and no U.S. equipment was damaged. The incident comes at a highly sensitive moment. Washington has staged a major military buildup in the region and just days ahead of planned U.S.-Iran talks. While U.S. officials stress the shootdown was defensive, the timing raises fresh fears of miscalculation. With warships already deployed and diplomacy hanging in the balance, the incident raises serious risk of escalation.